Let's talk about the weather. Now, this, of course, is a very common topic. We often talk about the weather, but what I want to teach you today is vocabulary, idioms that are related to the weather because they have a word that has to do with the weather in the idiom. Now, that does not mean that the meaning of these idioms and the way that you would use it has to do anything with the weather. But as far as learning idioms, because they can be a little tricky sometimes, I think it does help to associate it with something. In this case, these phrases are associated with the weather, and that can help you give you a better understanding of the meaning and then how to use it. So I am going to talk about some idioms that I think are common. Others maybe not as often used, but I still think they're great to know when it comes to improving your listening comprehension or reading comprehension. And if you would like to get these lesson notes that are right next to me, click on that link down below in the description. Join my community, and you'll have access to them. If you're already a part of the community, check your email. I've sent them out to you. And of course, if you are someone who enjoys building your vocabulary, please subscribe, turn on notifications. That way I can become your teacher. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about helping you reach your fluency goals. And I know some of you want to build your vocabulary, learn more idioms because you hear them often. In casual conversation, if you watch Netflix or you're watching a movie, you're definitely going to come across these idioms. So here's your first question. I'm giving you a sentence, and I've taken the idiom out. See, people already answer, which is good. And I want you to complete it with the idiom. The picture is, I was trying to associate it with it. I thought it'd be a little too easy if I gave it to you right away, so I blurred it out a little bit. I'm feeling so I decided not to go into work. Think about the reason why maybe you wouldn't go to work, and because of that, then think of the idiom that means the same thing. This one is incredibly common, and I see all these excellent answers. Great job, Angela, Lolly, good to see you. Feeling under the weather. And I think this is one that, in my opinion, you definitely need to know. I think it's a great one to use. When you're under the weather, you're feeling a little sick or unwell. The key word here is little. And if you are incredibly sick to the point maybe you need to go to the hospital, in that case, you may not use this idiom. But for most of us, as you go about your lives, most of us get a cold, or there are many times when we just don't have to seek, emergency medical attention, but we're just feeling a little sick. Maybe we go to the doctor, we get some antibiotics, whatever it is. But if somebody were to ask you like, hey, how are you doing? You're like, well, right now I'm feeling a little under the weather, or I'm feeling a bit under the weather. Sometimes people will even use this idiom with little or bit, just to emphasize, it's just a little sick or a bit sick. But the meaning of this is you are feeling a little sick. So not severely, when you're feeling under the weather. I use this one all the time. When people talk to me, how's it going? I'm okay, but right now I'm a little under the weather. Excellent. Well done. Jing, good to see you. I'm going to give some shout outs as we go through this. I thought this was funny, so I'll share some of these memes from time to time just to reinforce it. I can't go to work today. I'm feeling under the weather. So in this case, you're talking about you're under some, tough, difficult, horrible weather, and you're just not feeling good. You feel under the weather. What do you think? We're getting more. Now we're getting more difficult. At least I think. So this is an idiom that I think is very useful. It's not as common as the one we just talked about, saying, you're under the weather, because often people are going to say like, yeah, I'm a little sick. This is just something that happens to everyone. What do you think? His emotions, during the negotiations. Now, the sentence itself may not directly, like the negotiations, is not going to tell you exactly which idiom that you may use. But the picture, again, I've blurred it out because I don't want to give it away. If you can kind of tell what's going on in this picture, it is a picture of a person, kind of, but there's something going on there. His emotions, So if you're in a negotiation, I think most people would say, look, let's take the emotion out of it. All right. You shouldn't be emotional when you're trying to negotiate. So if someone is emotional, and then it's going to, what's it going to do? Possibly. And you could say his emotions, during the negotiations. So hopefully some of these are going to be new for you as you go through this. Since no, I haven't seen any answers, so maybe this is a little, the answer, what I was looking for, you could say, it clouds his judgment. So if you say that something clouds your judgment or clouds my judgment, it refers to just impairing your ability to think clearly, make good decisions, and you could say it clouds your judgment. So if somebody is emotional and you're negotiating, it could cloud your judgment and you're unable to make a good decision. So this is an idiom. Like I said, it may not be as commonly used. It is very specific. We're using the word cloud. Think about, in this picture, the cloud is like kind of going all over his head. You can't really think clearly. You can't think straight. And you could say something clouds your judgment. And there are many situations that you may be in which, okay, you can't really think clearly and it clouds your judgment. If you have to make a decision, you're hiring somebody for a job, but then you have somebody who is applying for the job that you kind of know, maybe a little bit of a friend or a family member. It could cloud your judgment because you know this person, you want to give them an opportunity, and maybe you might not make the best decision. So there are definitely instances when somebody's not thinking clearly or they're not able to think clearly for one reason or another, and then you could say something clouds your judgment, his judgment, her judgment, my judgment. So this is a great phrase to know. If this is new, again, you can let me know. If you're learning new idioms, hit that like button, or if you're with us today in the chat, you can hit those hearts, likes, and just, again, learning something new. That's what it's all about. She the surprise party and pretended not to know. So I think you can kind of tell from the sentence what's happening and get an idea, at least the missing part, what the meaning is, and then try to think of an idiom that fits that meaning. And you could use the picture or help. So she the surprise party and pretended not to know. So at this point, you know that what goes in that blank, she knew about the surprise party and pretended not to know. She got some information about it. Somebody told her. Who knows? So we know that is the situation, that she found out this information from somebody or in some way and then pretended not to know. What idiom, what phrase could we put in there when you are learning about some information or you receive it? Again, most of the time I feel like somebody mentioning it, maybe it was an accident. So we're not talking about like blow off or blow away, nothing with that verb. So in this picture, you can kind of see this person, the cloud. I don't know if you can see those other lines, and we're really talking about the wind. So the wind is part of this, and the answer, excellent. Saw one, perfect. Joanna Jing, perfect. Got wind of something. To get wind of something is when you hear of piece of information, especially something that somebody was trying to keep secret. So it could be, in this case, we're talking about a surprise party. Or maybe another instance, the company is going to lay off some employees, and somehow the employees got wind of this news, and maybe they were upset. But in that context, they get wind of it and they learn something, they get some information that they were not supposed to have, and you get wind of something. So this is another idiom that I feel like is very specific. It's still good to know because one that you will come across, casual conversation, somebody's telling a story. It's a great way to add emphasis. And, I didn't want this person to know, but somehow she got wind of it or he got wind of it, and you're using this idiom. Let's see. To give you a little more context, Even though idioms are more informal, you don't typically use them in writing. And it's not, I wouldn't encourage you to necessarily. You still come across them. You can even find news headlines in which they're using some of these phrases. So here's some example, more context to help you better understand the meaning. Fiji police get wind of unreported drug cases in schools and they learn about it. They get wind of this. Or cancellations flood in for killed our hotel as guests get wind of lockdown. This is years ago talking about the COVID lockdown, but this is happening and tourists, people get wind of it and then they cancel their plans that some country may be in more of a lockdown. And then finally, his Hot Wheels set won't last long once collectors get wind of it. And they find this, they learn about this new, prestigious set, and then they'll want to buy it and to get wind of something. Let's look at the next one. I think the picture can help you. I blurred it out a little bit, but I think you maybe can still piece it together. The rumor created a eventually damaging the company's reputation. So the company's reputation was damaged, started with this rumor, and it's almost like as things went along, things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Now, you see the article there, so this is going to be a noun. We're using this as a noun phrase. But the rumor created a eventually damaging the reputation. So something that starts out small, in this case, rumor. Most rumors start out small, but then they can spread quickly. And when they spread quickly, more people get wind of this information. Perhaps they start to believe it. And then it gets, worse and worse, in this case for this company. And you see the picture there. If you're unable to tell, those are snowballs. And it's rolling down the hill. And as it goes down the hill, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then that would be referred to as a snowball effect. So if you refer to some situation as having a snowball effect, it's just increasing in size at a faster rate. So in this case, some situation is creating this snowball effect, and eventually, that's another key word, because maybe at the beginning, it was just a rumor, but more and more people hear about it, and that's why eventually, as it got bigger and it increased in size, it really damaged the company's reputation. And you could say something creates a snowball effect, or it has a snowball effect. Good phrase to know. And I think if you were someone, even if this were new for you right now, probably now that you see the idiom, a snowball effect, it makes sense. And you can see that picture as it goes down the hill, it's getting bigger and bigger, and just this problem that gets too big, and then there's maybe some consequence. What do you think? This one's a little more challenging. Typically, for those of you who have joined me for these lessons before, I feel like every time I say that, that's when everybody knows the answer, but we'll see. The company is confident it can of economic uncertainty. So you have some economic uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's a scary situation. But in this case, the company is confident that it can do what? So this is another idiom that's, related to the weather, even though we're going to use it in different contexts. And this is certainly one that I think you will hear, and you might, again, I think you can definitely use it in your own life when talking about a situation, telling a story. And these are great phrases that you can use to be descriptive, to add emphasis. So, all right. I feel like sometimes just giving you a little more time to think of the answer and respond to these. Yes, we're talking about to weather the storm. If you are able to weather the storm, then it just means that you are able to continue doing something despite serious problems. The company is confident that it can weather the storm of economic uncertainty. So think about any situation in which there are problems. but you're basically saying, I'm going to be able to handle this. I can deal with these problems. I'm going to be able to weather the storm. And there are many different situations that this could apply to, as far as a problem you might have at work or personally, and you're gonna have to endure it for some time. But if you think you can get through it, yes, I will be able to weather the storm. I wanted to give you, this is a fun, I'll use this from time to time just to point it out as far as using ChatGPT. And if I want to give you more context, or even if you wanted more context yourself, you could go to ChatGPT and say, hey, give me 5 sentences with the idiom weather the storm. So what I really wanted to point out is, even though the idiom is talking about the weather and we're talking about a storm, you could use it when talking about the weather, as far as there's a storm coming up and you're like, look, okay, we're going to need to weather the storm. If there's a hurricane and you're going to stay put and you're going to go through it, then you are going to weather the storm. And you could use it in that context, but most of the time it's some other problem that somebody might be talking about. And for that reason, I wanted to give you some of these other examples using this idiom, like the first one: the small business managed to weather the storm during the economic recession. That is that tough period. Or the number 2, they faced a lot of criticism, but the team weathered the storm and came out stronger. So you had this situation, a lot of criticism, but they weathered the storm. Number 3, with patience and persistence, we can weather the storm and get through these tough times. That's a little more vague, but still you're able to use this idiom. Number 4, the marriage wasn't perfect, but they weathered the storm and stayed together for decades. I think that's a good example in thinking about marriage having its ups and downs. You have good times, and then you have other difficult times, in which case you need to weather the storm. That's a good association for this idiom. And finally, the politician had to weather the storm of public backlash after the scandal broke. If there's a scandal, whether you're involved or a company, or in this case a politician, you may need to weather the storm and try to get to the other side. So great idiom. Hopefully, again, if this one's new, you can let me know. Hit that like button, and I can do more of these lessons. Or again, it tells me right now you're learning some new phrases. The next part, and I'm switching it up a little. And what I want to do now is I'm giving you the meaning of the idiom. I'm giving you this picture, and then I want you to think of what is the idiom that I'm talking about. So this idiom means to hinder someone's enjoyment. Basically, you're upsetting someone's plans. You can look at the picture. I think that is at least one of the words. This is a direct word that is in a part of the idiom, and then hopefully you can kind of put it together from there. So you're hindering someone's enjoyment. In that case, yes, Lolly, Katrina, you are raining on their parade. So this is a picture. I tried to find a picture of a parade. And if you could think, okay, there's a parade, what idiom uses the word parade that's associated with the weather? To rain on someone's parade. You're hindering their enjoyment, and again, I think we can all think of a situation in which you were having a good time, but somebody else came along. Maybe they had a bad attitude, or they said something negative, and it really just, it rains on your parade. And this is one that I think we can all relate to. They hinder your enjoyment. They rain on your parade. This idiom right here, to stop being careful and do something that is dangerous or that might result in failure. What are you doing in this case? So if you're doing something that might result in failure, the picture's a little more difficult. So I was trying to find a picture of something that, I'll go ahead and give you one of the words, something that's really windy, a windy picture. So this idiom has the word wind in it. You stop being careful, you're doing something that's dangerous, and in that case, you are doing what? This is another one that I would say maybe it's not as commonly used, but still one that you're going to come across from time to time, because I think people, especially in places like the United States, we love using idioms. It wasn't until I started teaching English many, many years ago, and we would talk about idioms, that I actually realized how often I use idioms in just casual conversation. All right, now I see some great answers coming in. Perfect. Ava, Miranda, Julia, to throw caution to the wind. You're basically, it kind of means what it says. You should be cautious, and you're taking caution. Hey, I don't need to be cautious anymore. I'm going to throw caution to the wind, in which case I'm going to stop being careful and do something that could result in maybe disaster or failure. Here, this was actually a video. I couldn't grab the video to show it, but this was from, I don't know if it was a Reddit post or something. Sometimes you've just got to throw caution to the wind and go for it. It was a video of this boat that's close to the land, and you have these two cats, and the one cat is, thinking about it, and then just jumps and is trying to get to the land and just saying, look, I'm going to throw caution to the wind. I might not make it and end up in the water, but I'm going to do it anyway. And yes, the cat did land in the water, but just ran up onto the shore. So it was a fun little video, but a good example of, I'm going to take a chance, even though this is dangerous, and I'm going to throw caution to the wind. What do you think this idiom right here? So the meaning is, this is an idiom that is said when one bad thing happens, and then it's followed by other bad things, and it just makes the situation worse. I'll go ahead and say it is an idiom, but it's also an expression. And when I say it's really an expression, a lot of times people use this, it's a standalone statement. And you're just commenting on this situation. If somebody talks about something bad that happened, oh, I overslept this morning and I was late for work. And then when I got to work, I spilled some coffee on my clothes and I had to give a presentation later and I was scrambling around and you just keep talking about one bad thing after the other. And you're telling somebody this and they could say, okay, yeah, and they're just going to use this expression. I will say, point out one thing. When you most of the time use it to talk about bad things that are going on. I still think it's okay. You could use it to talk about great things, like you get really lucky as well. But most of the time, people are using it when referring to bad things that make the situation worse. And all of you, I think you know this, you've heard it before. When it rains, it pours. So this is a way to comment on the succession of bad things that really ruins someone's day and just ruins things for it. So all of these things, they just end up raining on someone's parade. What do you think? One thing I wanted to point out with this idiom, in the U.S., when it rains, it pours. And this is something that I actually was unaware of until I put this lesson together. In the UK, you may hear people say, I think you could still say when it rains, it pours, but people may say it never rains, but it pours. Has the same meaning. We're talking about bad things that just continuously happen, and it just makes the situation worse. When it rains, it pours. Or if you're learning British English or you're in the UK, it never rains, but it pours. What do you think about this next one? We're talking about a quiet or peaceful period before a period during which there is great activity, argument, or difficulty. And you can kind of use the picture to think about what is this idiom. It looks very peaceful right now, but you can see that off in the distance, you see that lightning and those dark clouds. And the weather is about to get much worse. So when commenting on this situation, that something in the future is going to be difficult, whether it's going to be an argument or a tough conversation that you need to have with someone, and then you could refer to the period before as what? This is and you could even use this when referring to the weather, but also other situations as well. So you're talking about the the period before. And you're saying, well, right now it is the what? Any guesses? What do you think? All right, perfect. All right, maybe there was a little delay. I see all these answers in there now. Great job, Katarina, Lali, Monsoon, Talal. The calm before the storm, and you're just referring to this period of kind of tranquility where it's there's not any like argument or activity or problems, but you know it's coming, and you're commenting on that like, oh, I'm a little worried about what's getting ready to happen. Like right now is the calm before the storm. And you know that it's going to get a lot more problematic. What do you think? This idiom is used to tell someone that you cannot accept an invitation now, but would like to do so at a later time. I could not really find a picture that accurately addresses this idiom that would actually give you a hint without making it too easy. But you're going to use this idiom, and this is more of an American expression, to tell someone you can't accept an invitation now, but hey, maybe we'll do this later. And in that situation, you invite me to go get a cup of coffee. I say, well, I'm on my way to do something else, but maybe let's do it this weekend. So I'm going to have to what? So excellent. Well done. We're talking about the idiom to take a rain check. I feel like you guys know your idioms, your weather idioms. So when you take a rain check, you're basically saying, okay, we're not going to do it now. Maybe we'll do it in the future. To take a rain check. I will add one thing when it comes to this idiom. I feel like sometimes people will use this idiom even though they're kind of implying, okay, this is not something I want to do, and I'm going to tell you that we're going to do it later, but we're not really going to do it later. I want to take a rain check. So if you ask me to do something, hey, let's go to dinner, but I'm like, oh, I don't really want to go out, and maybe I don't plan to do it in the future. I might just use this. Let's take a rain check. All right, let's take a rain check. The next, we're going to switch it up again, and I feel like maybe this will be a little easier. I'm giving you a picture. I just want you to tell me the idiom. Look at the picture. I blurred it out a little bit because I didn't want to make it too easy, but you can kind of see what's going on. And then what idiom are we talking about? This is one that is, I think, pretty common. So it's one that you've heard before. At least I'm confident that you've probably heard it. You may even use it. Especially, well, I don't want to give it away because we've been in this situation. And you can see these three individuals here. They are hacking away at this thing, which is clearly, even though I've blurred it out, it's clearly ice. And we're talking about breaking the ice. So this is a pretty common idiom. As I just said, I think you've probably heard it before when you want to make people feel comfortable and more relaxed, especially when they don't know each other. This is something every time I run a course and we have our first class together and there's like 4 or 5 people, and I might use it as a noun and say, we're going to do an icebreaker. It means the same thing. I'm just changing the part of speech to a noun, an icebreaker. Or I could say, well, let's break the ice. Here are some questions that are, this is just to break the ice. And we're going to try to feel a little more relaxed and comfortable with each other. Great idiom to know. This is a joke that I heard a long time ago, and it is a cheesy joke. And I've mentioned, I think somewhat recently in another quiz about something falls flat. It's intended to be funny, but it's not funny. Maybe this joke is going to fall flat. And then somebody would say, excuse me, do you know how much a polar bear weighs? Enough to break the ice. Da-dum-dum. So of course, I was looking around for different memes, and this is one because I feel like it's a joke that I heard a long time ago. I thought I would share it with you. Maybe it fell flat. I don't know. What do you think about this picture right here that I've blurred out? This is another idiom that I would say maybe is not as common as talking about breaking the ice or doing an icebreaker, but one that I think is still if you're learning idioms and you study idioms, if this is vocabulary that you're interested in, then I imagine you probably have come across this before and you've heard it before. So you see this person, this woman who's wearing a green dress. She's on that ladder. It's not, I know to be on cloud nine, that is an idiom. That's not the one that I'm talking about. This one, think more specifically exactly what's going on in this picture. I will go ahead and tell you all, if you're unfamiliar with the idiom to be on cloud nine, you're just really happy. If I got great news, I say, well, right now I am just on cloud nine. All these great things are happening to me. When it rains, it pours, and I'm on cloud nine. So I said, think about more specifically exactly what's happening, and you can kind of see it in the picture that this person has literally her head in the clouds. And if you're commenting and talking about someone, this is an idiom that you would use to describe someone else. And if someone has their head in the clouds, you're basically saying that this person is not paying attention to what's going on. They're oblivious to the things that are happening around them. And or also really implying that maybe they're being impractical or unrealistic. So if I'm talking about what my plan for this next year or for the rest of this year, and I say, well, I'm going to do this, and I have all these plans, and I'm going to do that, and you think like, wow, that is just not realistic. You could say Wes, kind of has his head in the clouds. His head is in the clouds right now, and you're basically saying that I'm being unrealistic. Or in another situation, if I'm just oblivious and not paying attention to what's going on, you're like, how are you unaware of these things that are happening? You really must have your head in the clouds. So again, another idiom. Hopefully, if you've heard of, if you know it, let me know. Hit that like 100 button, whatever. Tells me that you're aware of some of these idioms, and that is also an important thing because you're learning them passively for the most part. You read about these idioms, you watch these lessons, talking about the meaning, looking at example sentence. The goal is to build your confidence over time so that you can actively use them. And I know that's something that some people that don't have as much confidence in doing, that they're worried that they're going to use it in the wrong way, and I understand why. And it's just about getting that exposure. What do you think? I feel like this one is when people are learning idioms, I don't know why. I feel like English idioms, this is often like one of the first ones that people end up learning at school or wherever. This is an idiom that I don't really personally use, even though, like I said, I think it's one that a lot of people who speak English as a second language, I think many people are familiar with it. And you can kind of see in the picture that it is raining, but what is it raining? It's raining cats and dogs. So if you want to say that it's just raining heavily, you could say it's raining cats and dogs. Personally, there are so many different ways that you could say this. I would just say, wow, it's really pouring outside. Or I'd say, wow, it's really coming down. Or it's raining heavily. So there are a variety of ways that you can express this. And maybe that's why I don't end up using it as often, because I use other things. But yeah, you could say it's raining cats and dogs. This is, what do you think? So I'll give you a moment to think about it. I think you can kind of tell where this person is. Now, we've already talked about breaking the ice or doing an icebreaker, so it's a different idiom. But that being said, it is another idiom that has the word ice. I'll go ahead and tell you that because I think you can kind of discern from the picture that this person is standing on ice. And I guess I could say, what kind of ice? So, all right, perfect. The idiom that I'm referring to is, to be on thin ice. Now, there are several verbs you could using this. You could tell someone like you're skating on thin ice or you're walking on thin ice. I personally I feel like often you're just going to use it with the verb to be, and tell someone like, okay, this is your location right now. You are on thin ice. Right now, you're on thin ice. So there are different verbs that you can use with it, which is why I just gave on thin ice, because it really just refers to doing something that is dangerous or risky. And I would say often people may use this as like a command, or more so just like a statement telling someone that if they are doing something that you don't want them to do, like, look, don't keep pushing me. You're on thin ice. You're on thin ice. So you might use this as a warning to someone else, saying like, look, you're in a dangerous spot right now. Don't keep doing this. To go back to talked about like marriage and that other idiom of weathering the storm, because marriages go through times that are difficult or trouble. But also, again, you're married. There are times where you're going to disagree. And if I might be having an argument with my wife about something, and we keep talking, and maybe she might tell me, look, let's not keep talking about it. You're saying things that's really bothering me. You're on thin ice. And it's like you're giving that warning to someone else. You're on thin ice. This is I just thought this was funny. This little meme right here. It says the thinner the ice is, the more tempting it is to check if it can hold you. And I feel like even though you're going to use this like to be on thin ice, not literally talking about on thin ice, but in a dangerous position, I think people do have that temptation. When somebody gives you that warning, like, you're on thin ice. It's almost tempting to keep pushing to see at what point does the other person break. And in that case, you fall through the ice, and then you really maybe have problems with your spouse, with your boss. That's another time that you may hear somebody use this at work. Maybe you make several mistakes, and your boss says, look, you need to change things. You need to, do better. You're on thin ice right now. What do you think about this one? I feel like I probably should have blurted out a little more. You can kind of gauge what's going on in this picture. This is another idiom that I think you will likely hear, especially movies, TV shows. Depending on the situation, you could use it conversationally, but I feel like it just is, again, just my opinion, one that you may come across more in TV shows, instead of actually actively using in conversation. So what is happening in this picture right here? You can see this gentleman who is dressed in a peculiar way, holding a flashlight. Obviously, it looks like they're stealing somebody. This person is a thief, yes. And what they have in the bag, you can see there's a word written, but it's maybe a little, you can kind of make it out, I guess, to steal someone's thunder. If you steal someone's thunder, you are doing what someone else is going to do before they do it, especially if it's taking like success or praise away from someone. So let me give you some examples of like the context. Let's say we work together. You're my colleague and I have an idea and I share my idea with you. And basically during the meeting, you pretend like it's your idea. And you say, oh my gosh, you stole my thunder. You basically took credit for my idea. That would be more a situation that is, it's going to bother someone if they steal your thunder. Something that's a little more, innocuous, that's really not going to hurt. Let's say that we would use this in class. If I'm asking questions as a student, I ask for people, can you give me an example? And they maybe give an example using the idiom or whatever vocabulary we may be talking about. And then the next person that I ask was like, okay, can you give me an example? If they were going to say the same thing, they could, I was going to say the same thing. This person stole my thunder. And they did it before they were getting ready to do it. And that's kind of harmless in that context. Another time when you may use this, like taking attention away from someone. So think about a wedding. This is another example I give with this idiom. If on the wedding day, the bride is going to wear a white dress, other women should not wear a white dress. If somebody else were to show up wearing a white dress, you could say, oh, it's like, she's trying to steal the bride's thunder and take attention or praise away from this person. So there are different ways in which you can use this idiom. I think, again, it's one that you will come across. So it's good for your comprehension. It is a little more specific. So you may be in a situation in which you can use it, and I think that's great. If I share this one last meme with you, nobody can steal your thunder when you are the storm. And in this context, it's like you're the storm, you're the one who is loud and talking, and basically because of that, nobody's going to be able to steal your thunder. Here are a list of all the idioms that we've talked about. Again, hopefully some of them are new. If you were familiar with some of them, that's great. It's all about getting that exposure so that you can take it from passively understanding them if you hear them in conversation to being able to actively use them. And some of these you can certainly use actively. They're very easy. You're feeling a little sick. Well, I'm feeling a little under the weather. Or more specific, if you're in a situation in which, I think you're not, something happened and I don't believe that you're able to make the right decision, and say, well, I think this thing really clouded your judgment and you weren't able to make a good decision. And other ones, more descriptive commenting, like raining cats and dogs, or wanting to break the ice. So all of these idioms are related to the weather in that there is a word, either the word weather or something else related to the weather, even though as we've gone through them and you understand the meaning, you can see that they're used in different contexts. If you enjoyed this lesson and learned something new, you can let me know by hitting that like button. I really appreciate you being here with me today, learning these new idioms. I hope you just keep practicing, keep up the good work, and I will see you very soon for another lesson in the future.